Alright everybody, Melanie here. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for all the emails that I've been getting. I'm so happy to have your support. If you've got questions about my counselling, if you've got feedback for my videos, keep the emails coming. I love reading them. And please be patient because I do get a lot, so it might take me a while to get back to you. I recently had a video request from someone who has BPD, and they asked if I could make a video about why it is that they oscillate between being a pushover and being a bitch. Those were their words, not mine. So I'd like to rephrase that a little bit, why one can pendulate between being very easygoing, being a pushover, like they said, and then becoming very harsh, very angry, and making decisions that are very cutting and very opposite to being a pushover. Pendulating between these different poles of being very easygoing, very passive, to being very aggressive. It's not just limited to people who have BPD. Many people experience this, whether they experience it themselves or people dating people like this. It's not just limited to BPD. However, we do find it, especially in people who have quiet borderline personality disorder. So I want to share with you some thoughts, my thoughts on why this is happening. There's obviously a lot more to say on this subject. So if you have any questions after this video, if you've got any comments, any feedback, you are so welcome to email me. My email address is in the video description. So one reason why someone may pendulate between being very passive towards being very aggressive and just keep swinging between those two poles is because of enmeshed parenting. If you've seen the previous video that I made, it was talking about the TV show The Act and the dangers of enmeshed parenting. If we have a parent, mum or dad, maybe even both, who are very controlling, perhaps this was a highly narcissistic parent, perhaps this parent themselves were cluster B personality disordered. And as such, they didn't want the child to grow up and individuate. They didn't want the child to leave the parent because the child is a supply source. And the parent wants the child to be whatever the parent wants the child to be. And it's very hard, if you grow up in this dynamic, to know who you are, to know how to assert your needs, to know how to say no, to know how to be assertive. To survive this toxic, dysfunctional parent, one learns to adapt. An adaptive way of being is going with the flow and being a bit of a pushover, because you had to be, to survive this punitive parent who would punish you if you stepped out of line, if you were to say or do things that this controlling parent did not like. Children who grow up in this enmeshed relationship don't know how to set boundaries. They struggle with asserting what it is that they actually want to do and what they like. And when they go into future relationships as an adult, it becomes habitual. Their adaptive way of being becomes the current mode. It's always how they are. So a child who grows up, who had a controlling parent like this, and they get into future relationships, they often do struggle with saying what it is they actually want to do. It's become habitual. And what is the fear behind that? The fear is that perhaps the past will happen again. If they were actually to say, no, I don't want to do this, or no, I don't agree with this, actually, this is what I believe, this is what I want to do. The fear from the past of what happened when they tried to do this comes rushing back in. And we find this in people who have CPTSD, PTSD, as well as cluster B personality disorders. You are now an adult, you are now no longer in the dysfunctional, toxic environment in which you grew up in. And yet it's become so habitual, the adaptive self has become so ingrained in everyday living that it's hard to just suddenly flip on a switch and think, aha, I perhaps should assert my needs a bit more. The past isn't going to happen again. I don't need to be so fearful. And I'm a believer that through a regular daily practice of mindfulness and meditation, one can actually improve their reality checks. It becomes easier to do a reality check. But for most people who aren't there yet, the past takes over and it becomes habitual, ingrained to push their needs to one side and just go with the flow to survive. The problem is that when you keep doing this, when you keep suppressing your needs, you keep pushing away your own desires, always going with the flow, always agreeing to what the partner, what your friends want to do. There is an anger that bubbles inside, and the anger is at you not expressing your needs, not expressing your authentic self. And sometimes it just bubbles up to the surface and explodes. Now, someone who doesn't like seeing the side of themselves, someone who builds their self-identity on being a peaceful, passive, happy person, when this anger suddenly flares up, sometimes they feel ashamed of it and will blame the other person and then push it back down again and continue with going with the flow and being a pushover. This is a reflection of their own relationship with their own anger, with their own shadow, so to speak, with seeing the sides of themselves that they are deemed as not good, that perhaps their parent has shamed them about. Not just the parents, but society seems to say you're a bad person if you are an angry person. So when the anger does come up, and anger is there for a good reason, it's anger at not being authentic, not having your needs met, not expressing your needs, doing things that actually you don't want to do. The anger is there to tell you that this isn't right. And yet if you don't have a good relationship with anger and you're quite ashamed of it, then when it does come up, the other person's reaction can be quite confusing. They're shocked, and witnessing that shock in itself can be quite shaming. So a way to transform this is to choose friendships and relationships in which you feel safe and you trust the person so that you can talk about this openly, to express to your friend or to your partner, maybe to your family, but if you came from a dysfunctional family, probably not. But nonetheless, to choose now friends and lovers and romantic partners in which you can be honest and open about this, so that when this anger does come up again, you can recognize it and explain what's going on, and to have a partner or a friend who can understand this. And then through this corrective emotional experience, when you can express your needs, and if you do explode, to then express what's going on and to have your words listened to and be told it's okay. This is a way that you can actually start to take accountability back. It's a way to start seeing your own projections. It's a way for you to develop a better relationship with your anger. And we can better work with anger. We can transform it when we are actually meeting our needs. Another reason why you may be a bit of a pushover is because you've witnessed another family member being a pushover. As children, we look to our parents to teach us how to be adults. We look to them for everything. So if you were a boy and you witnessed your dad being very passive and very compliant and being a bit of a pushover, then it's likely then you grow up as a man and you end up copying his behaviors. You see it as a way for you to find validation. You have witnessed it as a way to stay in relationship, whether it's with co-workers, whether it's with a dysfunctional mother, whatever it is, we learn what our parents do. So if you've had one parent or maybe two parents who have been pushovers, then it's not surprising that you could grow up thinking that this is a way to stay in relationship. This is a way to be seen. This is a way to be loved. And sometimes this is just habitual, and we grow up and we realize that actually we are going to get walked all over if we keep being like this. And often people come from quite healthy families. There hasn't been an enmeshed relationship. There wasn't a dysfunctional, controlling, narcissistic parent. Two parents who were quite happy, good people. And so you come into the world somewhat naively thinking that if I'm just a really happy and helpful person and just always help other people, then this is how to live. And unfortunately in this world though, there are people who will take advantage of you, who will see you as a bit of a pushover. They see you as a super friendly person who will just do anything for everyone. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. In a more evolved society where consciousness has been elevated somewhat, then this is the way to go. But right now in this current third dimension with the state of the world, there will be people who will spot you and will take advantage of you. People who are pushovers are automatically seen by people who need a supply source. Not necessarily narcissists, just people who need something. And if you keep putting up your hand saying, hey, yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll do what you need. Yeah, I don't have my own personal time. I'll come help you out, you will get exploited. And after a while, anyone will get fed up with this. And so the anger boils up. Why am I being used? Why am I always finding myself in situations in which people are using me? Perhaps it's an opportunity to realize that it's not a bad thing to have boundaries and to say no. Because when you say no to others, often you're saying yes to yourself, are you not? I had a friend who is very, very much heavily involved in the New Age scene. And she told me once that in the New Age scene, it's seen as negative to say no. It's seen as bad, negative to have boundaries. This is dangerous for the exact reasons which I've just explained. It's not a bad thing to say no and have boundaries. And if someone treats you differently because you say no to them, that's perhaps a bit of a warning sign that this person's got issues with you having boundaries, all right? The people who are good for you, the people that you need in your life will respect you and will honor your boundaries and will work with them. So if you want to know how can I stop having people in my life who keep using me, who keep taking advantage of me, well, practice saying no more often. Honor what it is that you need. Honor your boundaries and keep them in place to prevent people like this coming into your life and using you. If you don't want people to use you, then stop giving away your time and energy so easily, and then you won't be pendulating between being passive and aggressive. Instead, you will be healthily assertive. And of course, there are times when one does need to be more passive in certain situations, such as at work, for example, when you have to keep a stiff upper lip when dealing with a very challenging co-worker or boss. And there are times when you need to be aggressive, such as in self-defense when you're being attacked. The point is to have control and to know when the appropriate action is needed and to come back to the middle, which is healthy assertiveness. And I want to end the video reminding you that this comes down to you meeting your own needs. And many people who find themselves being a bit of a pushover and then exploding with anger, it's because they find it hard to meet their own needs. And often they are looking to others for self-validation. And these are people who find themselves in codependent relationships. They struggle with seeing their own worth, their own value. Perhaps they see themselves as less than, and they look to others to make themselves feel better. And as such, they do become enmeshed. They do find themselves in codependent relationships and looking to the other for validation. And so then it's easy to become a pushover because you want to create an agreeable relationship in which there are no issues and you guys can just get along and bond as quickly as possible. But everyone needs healthy boundaries in this life. You need to be able to express your needs. And if this doesn't get met, then anger is inevitable. And it's hard to see this in yourself when you can snap like this. And it's hard for the person experiencing this, whether it's a friend or a romantic partner. Coming back to yourself, rebuilding a better relationship with yourself, learning to validate yourself, it all comes back to you. And when you can start to rebuild a better relationship with yourself, things will become easier. It will be easier for you to gain control. It will be easier for you to do shadow work. It will be easier for you to depend on yourself and not depend on others to determine who you are, to give you the relationship that you've been looking for. My next video will be about codependency, so if you want to find out more, I highly suggest watching my latest video. So I'll leave it here for now. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, for subscribing, for liking. And don't forget, I do have 2 other channels. Remember Who You Are. Myself and Casey are running this amazing channel, which is explaining how we can recover from trauma at the level of the physical, psychological, and emotional. And I've also got my own vlog, Memories of Arcadia, which is how I'm sharing what helps me with stress, with artistic, creative music and videos. So I'd love for your support on both channels, and I'll leave it there. All right, bye for now.